If your family has been in New Jersey for more than a generation or two, there's a real chance someone in your bloodline lived in one of these towns. New Jersey has over 50 ghost towns. We're counting down 13 of the most remarkable, places that once had hundreds of people and then slowly emptied out until there was nothing left. Stay for number 3. An unsolved mystery turned this town into one of the most disturbing cases in American history. Number 13. Walpack Center, Sussex County. Walpack Center exists because the U.S. government spent nearly $100 million displacing its residents for a dam that was never built. The Walpack Valley had been a continuous farming community since the 1700s, a church built in 1872, a general store and post office from 1850, 6 farmhouses, and Old Mine Road, one of the oldest European-built roads in America, running through the valley. In 1965, the federal government announced the Tox Island Dam project, which would flood the Delaware River Valley to create a 37-mile reservoir for flood control and recreation. Between 6,000 and 8,000 residents across the region were displaced through eminent domain. The government spent close to $100 million acquiring the properties. The dam was never built. Environmentalists demonstrated that the reservoir would trap agricultural runoff and produce dangerous algae blooms, destroying the river ecosystem it was meant to improve. Opposition grew through the late 1960s and 70s. Costs kept rising. The project was effectively dead by the mid-1970s and wasn't formally deauthorized until 1992. The residents were already gone by then. There was nothing left to do but preserve the empty valley. The church, the general store, the post office, and the 6 original houses all stand intact inside the National Recreation Area today. Perfectly preserved, completely uninhabited, a monument to $100 million and thousands of displaced lives spent on something that never happened. Number 12. Batsto Village, Burlington County. There is a village in the Pine Barrens that helped George Washington win the Revolutionary War, and most New Jerseyans have never heard of it. Batsto was founded in 1766. Its bog iron furnace produced cannonballs, camp kettles, and artillery fittings for the Continental Army. The British marched specifically toward Batsto in 1778 to destroy it. A militia turned them back. Washington commissioned personalized firebacks from Batsto. 2 are still at Mount Vernon today. 3 generations of the Richards family ran Batsto as a fully self-contained company town for 92 years. Workers paid in company scrip, spending only at the company store. Then in the 1840s, Pennsylvania coal reached New Jersey's iron market, and Batsto's charcoal furnace could no longer compete on price. The Richards family pivoted to glassmaking in 1846, producing window glass, a viable market, but fires destroyed the glassworks facilities in the 1860s, and it closed in 1867. Philadelphia industrialist Joseph Wharton purchased the ruins in 1876 and tried cranberries, sugar beets, and forestry. Nothing sustained a village. Wharton died in 1909. The last resident finally left in 1989. More than 40 structures remain today, including a post office that still operates with no zip code. Number 11. Waterloo Village, Sussex County. Waterloo Village survived the Revolution, the Civil War, and a century of industrial change, and then died when the infrastructure that had made it valuable became obsolete. The first iron forge here dates to 1761. The village found its real purpose in 1831 when the Morris Canal opened, 102 miles from the Delaware River to Jersey City, using inclined planes to lift and lower boats over the hills of northern New Jersey. Waterloo was the midway point, and the Smith family, who owned the land, built a hotel, a tavern, and a general store around the steady flow of coal barges. The canal hit peak traffic in 1866. Then, railroads took over. Trains were faster and didn't freeze solid every winter, which had always been the canal's fatal weakness, since coal demand peaked in winter exactly when the canal couldn't run. Freight shifted to rail almost immediately after the Civil War. By 1900, barely 1 boat a year crossed the full canal. It officially closed in 1924. A rail line through Waterloo survived for a time, but when train service ended in 1946, the last commercial reason for the village's existence was gone. The Smith family lost their fortune along with their business. The property was foreclosed. 20 original structures from the 1760s to the 1860s still stand in Allamuchy Mountain State Park, frozen in the moment the water stopped moving. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. We cover history like this every week. Number 10. Allaire Village, Monmouth County. James P. Allaire was a New York steam engine manufacturer who built a complete ironworks village in Monmouth County in 1822. 400 residents by the 1830s, with a blacksmith shop, carpenter shop, church, school, and general store, all organized around the Howell Iron Works, which smelted bog iron for his New York manufacturing business. Two forces hit simultaneously and ended it. The Panic of 1837, triggered by collapsing land speculation and a tightening of credit by the Bank of England, caused a severe economic contraction across the United States and shrank demand for manufactured goods. At the same moment, Pennsylvania anthracite coal was enabling a new generation of iron furnaces that produced metal at a fraction of the cost of Allaire's charcoal-fired bog iron operation. New Jersey couldn't compete on cost, and there was no longer enough demand to sustain an uncompetitive furnace. The works closed permanently in 1848. Allaire died in 1858, with the village already empty and overgrown. 13 original buildings still stand today. Living history volunteers work as blacksmiths year-round. Every October, ghost tours walk through buildings that have been waiting for their workers to return for 175 years. Number 9. Whitesbog, Burlington County. Whitesbog was a Pine Barrens cranberry company town, and the place where something happened that changed American agriculture forever. The founder's daughter, Elizabeth Coleman White, spent years trying to do what the entire agricultural world said was impossible: cultivate wild blueberries. Wild blueberries grew in the Pine Barrens, but had never been successfully domesticated. The specific soil acidity they required couldn't be reliably reproduced, and plants selected from the wild were too inconsistent to farm. Working with federal botanist Frederick Coville between 1910 and 1916, White solved it. She offered cash prizes to Pine Barrens locals who found wild bushes with the largest berries, selected the best plants, crossbred them, and developed a variety that could be reproduced and farmed at commercial scale. The world's first cultivated highbush blueberry came from Whitesbog in 1916. Every blueberry you have ever eaten traces back here. As farming industrialized through the mid-20th century, the small company town couldn't compete with large commercial operations. Workers left. The buildings emptied. Every June, visitors now attend the Blueberry Festival at Whitesbog, most with no idea they're standing at the birthplace of the fruit they've been eating their whole lives. Number 8. Raritan Landing, Middlesex County. Raritan Landing was a prosperous colonial port city, and for nearly 100 years, it lay buried under modern New Jersey, forgotten. In the early 1700s, Raritan Landing occupied the furthest upstream point on the Raritan River where ocean vessels could navigate, making it the natural transfer point between sea trade and the interior of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Warehouses, merchants, a ferry crossing, fine homes, including the Cornelius Low House, a Georgian mansion built in 1741, still standing today. When railroads arrived in the mid-1800s, they bypassed the river entirely. Goods moved to rail depots closer to manufacturing centers. New Brunswick, just downstream, had the rail connections and absorbed the trade. By 1870, Raritan Landing was abandoned. Buildings demolished, streets and foundations buried under roads, and then under the expanding campus of Rutgers University. In 1970, land cleared for Rutgers Stadium began producing colonial ceramics, foundations, and artifacts. A buried port city had been sitting under the university for a century. The Cornelius Low House is now the Middlesex County Museum. Most of the town is still below the surface. Number 7. Double Trouble, Ocean County. The Pine Barrens company town called Double Trouble got its name when the Cedar Creek Dam burst twice in 1 week. and the sawmill operator reportedly threw up his hands and said, "Double trouble." The Double Trouble Company owned everything: the housing, the store, the school, the bunkhouse. Workers had no outside employer and no independent means. When the Atlantic white cedar that had driven the lumber operation was nearly logged out across the pine barrens by the early 1900s, the company pivoted to cranberries, converting the cleared swampland into bogs. By the 1920s, Double Trouble was one of the 10 largest cranberry producers in New Jersey. Then, overproduction collapsed the market. New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Wisconsin were all growing cranberries at scale, and prices fell through the mid-20th century. Mechanized harvesting made labor-intensive operations like Double Trouble increasingly expensive to run. The bogs stopped being profitable. The last commercial harvest was in 2011. 14 original structures remain inside Double Trouble State Park, slowly weathering in the Pine Barrens' quiet. Number 6. Feltville, Union County. In 1844, a businessman named David Felt built an entire town from scratch in the Watchung Mountains: a printing factory, 2 dams, a school, a church, a store, and housing for 175 workers. Workers called him King David because he rang bells controlling their entire day: when to wake up, when to work, when to go to bed. Then in 1860, he retired and sold the property. The business had been built entirely around Felt's personal contracts in the New York stationery trade. Without him, those contracts disappeared. 6 different owners over the next 20 years tried to find another use for the buildings, but the site had no railroad or river access. Without a way to move goods cheaply, nothing was profitable in that location. Every attempt failed. Locals renamed it the Deserted Village, and the name stuck. In 1882, the land was converted into a summer resort. Visitors came by train from New York for golf, tennis, and fishing, until the Jersey Shore became accessible by rail and automobile, and nobody wanted a mountain vacation when the ocean was just as easy to reach. The resort closed in 1916. 3 original 1840s structures still stand in the Watchung Reservation. The Deserted Village is exactly as advertised. Number 5. Long Pond Iron Works, Passaic County. Long Pond Iron Works, along the Wanakay River in Passaic County, supplied iron to George Washington's Continental Army, and then spent the next 2 centuries quietly vanishing into the forest. The works were established in 1766 by a German industrialist named Peter Hasencleaver, commissioned by London investors to develop New Jersey's iron deposits. Hasencleaver built on a large scale furnaces, forges, worker housing, roads, and the works continued under new ownership through the Revolution and the War of 1812. A major modernization in the 1850s and 60s added a new blast furnace and a full company village. At peak, the ironworks employed hundreds. Then the same Pennsylvania coal economics that ended Batsto, Allaire, Atsion, and Harrisville reached Long Pond. Anthracite coal furnaces in Pennsylvania could smelt iron at a cost that no charcoal-fired Pine Barrens operation could match. The Long Pond furnace went cold for the last time in 1882. Workers left. The forest moved in and kept moving. For most of the 20th century, the ruins sat forgotten in what is now Ringwood State Park. Preservation work in recent decades uncovered furnace remains, ironmaster houses, and worker cottage foundations, all intact under the undergrowth. You can walk through it today and see the full outline of a village that fed the Revolution and then quietly disappeared into the trees. Number 4. Atsion, Burlington County. Atsion, deeper in the Pine Barrens, failed at everything it ever tried. 3 completely different industries, each one collapsing for its own specific reason. First, iron. A forge established in 1765 ran for decades using bog ore and pine charcoal. When Pennsylvania coal made that process uneconomical in the 1840s and 50s, Atsion, like every Pine Barrens furnace, couldn't survive the price gap. Furnace went cold. Second, cotton. A new owner converted the site in 1827, built the federal-style Atsion mansion that still stands today, and ran a cotton mill until competition from southern mills, which had cheaper labor and better shipping access to Atlantic ports, made the New Jersey operation unviable. Mill closed. Third, cranberries. Joseph Wharton purchased Atsion in 1892 and converted the old mill building to cranberry processing, providing work for the remaining village residents. When Wharton died in 1909, his trust company managed the properties with decreasing investment, and the last workers gradually left. New Jersey purchased the land in 1954. The ruins of 3 separate failed industries are still visible in the undergrowth, a layered record of everything that didn't work. Number 3. Ong's Hat, Burlington County. Ong's Hat in the Pine Barrens was a real town. At its peak in the 1860s, it was a lively social spot for people in the surrounding area. Dances, drinking, prize fighting. The name most likely came from an early settler family named Ong. The story that stuck was that a man named Ong got his silk hat stomped at a dance, threw it into a pine tree in a rage, and it stayed up there long enough to become a local landmark. By the early 1900s, the population had dropped to 7 residents. A couple named the Chinaniskis moved in. Then the wife disappeared. The husband disappeared shortly after. Hunters found a female skeleton in the woods. The county sheriff kept the skull in his office for years. The case was never solved. By 1936, the last resident, a 79-year-old farmer named Eli Freed, walked away. Nothing was left but a clearing and some bits of brick in the weeds. Then, in the 1980s, someone started spreading a made-up story about the place. It started on early internet message boards, the kind people used before the web existed, and claimed that a group of rogue scientists had secretly been living in Ong's Hat, running experiments, and eventually vanished. The story spread through photocopied pamphlets, then onto websites, picking up new details every time someone passed it along. It was fiction, written as a kind of collaborative game. But it was written to look real. Fake documents, fake footnotes, references to the actual town and its actual history. And a lot of people who found it online genuinely couldn't tell it was made up. Millions of people downloaded the documents. Some still go to the Pine Barrens today looking for evidence. There is nothing there, just the clearing, the trees, and an unsolved murder that nobody remembers anymore because the fake story buried it. Number 2. Harrisville, Burlington County. Harrisville was a Pine Barrens paper mill town with gas lanterns on the paths and white picket fences. It started as an ironworks, and when Pennsylvania coal made charcoal smelting uneconomical in the 1840s, reinvented itself as a paper mill. The paper mill ran for about 3 decades, but by the 1870s and 80s, larger mills in Pennsylvania and upstate New York had better river transport, better raw material access, and lower costs. They could produce paper cheaper than an isolated Pine Barrens mill with no railroad connection could match. Harrisville lost its contracts and couldn't replace them. The mill closed in 1891. Workers left quietly over the following years. The school, the store, and the post office all followed. A forest fire in 1914 destroyed most of what remained. Today, only the stone ruin of the paper mill survives, fenced off in the Pine Barrens. Number 1. Johnsonberg, Warren County, Johnsonberg, is not fully abandoned. Not yet. It is one of the most quietly vanishing towns in New Jersey. A small agricultural and commercial village that never developed the industry or railroad access that would have given it a reason to grow. When larger towns nearby, Blairstown and Belvedere, developed rail connections in the mid to late 1800s, they drew the commerce and the population. Johnsonberg had no equivalent advantage, no ore deposit, no canal stop, no factory floor, nothing to anchor a working population to the place once those nearby towns became easier to reach. The post office closed, the general store closed, young people left for work elsewhere and didn't come back. The population dropped below 100, then below 50. Houses that sold cheap. Houses that didn't sell sat empty. Johnsonberg is still on the map. The church still holds services, but the trajectory has been clear for a long time. It doesn't disappear overnight. It disappears the way all of New Jersey's forgotten places disappeared. Slowly, one closed door at a time, until there is not a single business open, not a single light on, not a single reason to stop. New Jersey's ghost towns didn't die fast. They just ran out of reasons to stay. Drop a comment. Tell us what part of New Jersey you're from and what New Jersey town you want us to cover next. Subscribe for more New Jersey history, and we'll see you in the next one.